doing progress reports. It's all part of the job. Writing progress reports is really important because for a lot of families, ours included, we depend on government funding to pay the fees that for our supporters. And so in order to qualify to get the funding, we need to be accountable. To be accountable, we need progress reports. We have to have goals. We have to have objectives. We have to show that we're achieving outcomes. And the only way to do that is to write a progress report. So because we have such a turnover in supporters, we ask that we get progress reports written twice a year. Progress reports are written by the supporters every 6 months in March and September, in time for the fiscal year end of the funding fiscal year end, and then halfway through the fiscal year. So when you're doing the progress report, you record who you are so that we know who wrote the report. You report the name of the person that you're supporting and the period that you are reporting for. Be sure to include the date of the report, and also be sure to include how long you've known the person at the center and what it is that you do with them, what your role is. You might be the team leader, you might be a frontline supporter, so be sure to include that. Then list the goals that you've been working on. There's a list of goals for each person at the center that they're working on. You may not be responsible for each of the goals, so just list the goals that you have been working on, and then report on each of the goals. So the things that you want to include in your progress report are things like, of course, which goals you worked on, what activities you did in order to achieve the goal, the progress that you're seeing with respect to the goal, the things that might have helped to make even more progress happen that wasn't available to you. Maybe you've got some suggestions there. What challenges you or the person at the center might have been facing while working on the goal, which of those challenges were overcome, what factors put the person that you support at risk of regressing. That's really important to include that, because you're not going to be around forever, and when you leave, somebody else is going to come in and take over, and we need to be aware of the things that might result in regression so we can potentially, hopefully, avoid that. We want to include accomplishments that you observed and celebrated, anything that you've learned along the way, whether you think that things are on track with respect to achieving the goal, progressing towards a goal of independence or as much independence as possible, and include any recommendations that you have for further action or changes that might be needed with respect to the goal, and recommendations that you might be able to make with respect to increased or decreased amount of support that's required. And we also like to know whether supporters are getting what they need to be able to do their job. So are you getting the resources that you need? So report on that as well. And then that's for one goal. And so if you're working on 2 goals, you do that again with the second goal. If you're working on 6, you do it for all 6. And so there's a very clear format that's required. There's a template that is used, and so what's in a progress report? The progress report includes the goals that have been worked on over the last 6 months. Not only the goals that I should say only the goals that the supporter has been working on, not the other goals. And then what activities were worked on, and or what they did, the activities that they did to achieve the goal, the progress that's seen, things that might have helped to achieve the goal that was set out, any challenges that were faced, any celebrations that were achieved. And one piece that is really important is what sometimes happens, actually, I should say frequently happens, is that the person at the center is being supported in achieving a certain goal. And then there's a turnover in supporters. And what happens is that what the person at the center has achieved is then lost because they don't have the same person supporting them. So they regress. And so we want the supporters to be thinking about the factors that might support the person at the center from regressing. We want them to be thinking about these things. We want to know any learnings. So some of the things that supporters have learned over the years are things like how the person at the center really communicates non-verbally. That's a really important thing, and we want to be capturing those learnings along the way. We also want to know that things are on track, that things are progressing, not that they're stalled. We want to make sure things keep going forward. We want any recommendations that the supporter might have for amending the goals or changing the actions that need to be taken. And then we would like to know if the supporter thinks that the person at the center needs more support, requiring more funding. And we also want to know about the supporter, whether they're getting what they need to be able to do the job that they need to do. So all of this information goes into one concise report. It doesn't have to be written like an essay. It can be bullet form. It can be just 3 or 4 words per line, just very short, concise, to the point. But it's very valuable. It needs to be done.
Great.
All right.